The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 2 years. Lisa rolled out of bed, her body aching from yesterday's double shift. She could hear her little brother Alex breathing softly in the bed across their tiny shared room. For a moment, she just watched him sleep peacefully, his math textbook still open beside him where he'd fallen asleep studying. At 14, Alex looked so much like their dad when he slept. The same dark hair that stuck up in impossible directions, the same stubborn chin. Lisa quickly pushed that thought away. Thinking about their parents in the morning always made the day harder. She tiptoed to their small kitchen and started the coffee maker. The machine wheezed and gurgled like it was dying, but it still worked. Lisa had learned to fix almost everything in their apartment herself. YouTube videos had become her best friend when the sink leaked or the heater made strange noises. While waiting for the coffee, she opened the refrigerator and stared at its contents. Half a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, 3 eggs, and a carton of milk that would expire tomorrow. She did quick math in her head. If she ate just toast for breakfast and skipped lunch at work, there would be enough for Alex to have scrambled eggs and toast. Maybe even a glass of milk. Lisa had become a master at this daily calculation. Every meal was planned, every dollar stretched until it screamed. She grabbed 2 slices of bread and put them in the toaster, then poured herself a cup of black coffee. The bitter taste used to bother her, but she'd gotten used to it. Cream and sugar were luxuries they couldn't afford. "Morning, sis." Alex shuffled into the kitchen, his hair doing that impossible sticking-up thing. He was growing so fast that his pajama pants showed his ankles. "Hey, sleepyhead, you've got eggs this morning." Lisa cracked the eggs into their one good pan. "What about you?" Alex peered over her shoulder. "I'll eat at work." The lie came easily now. She told it so many times, Alex frowned. "You always say that, but I never see you pack anything." "The store has a break room with snacks." Another lie. The break room had a broken vending machine and a microwave that only worked half the time. Alex didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. He was smart enough to know they were struggling, even though Lisa tried to hide it. Sometimes she caught him looking at her with worried eyes that seemed too old for his face. While Alex ate his breakfast, Lisa ironed his school clothes with their ancient iron. She'd bought it at a garage sale for $3, and it left small burn marks if you weren't careful. But wrinkled clothes made kids ask questions, and questions led to phone calls from school counselors. "Remember, I'm working late tonight," Lisa said, concentrating on getting the wrinkles out of Alex's shirt. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge for dinner." "I know. And I'll do my homework first, then practice guitar, then bed by 10. Alex recited their routine like a prayer. "And if anyone asks, you're at your second job, which ends at 11, and Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs checks on me." Alex finished the sentence. Mrs. Rodriguez was real and she was kind, but she didn't actually check on Alex. Lisa had asked her to just listen for any trouble and call if needed. Lisa worked at Miller's grocery store, a small family-owned market in their neighborhood. It wasn't glamorous, but Mr. Miller was understanding when she needed to leave for Alex's school events, and he paid her under the table so she didn't lose their government assistance. The work was hard. 8 hours of standing lifting heavy boxes, dealing with customers who sometimes treated her like she was invisible. Her feet always hurt and her back ached constantly, but she smiled through it all because this job was their lifeline. During her lunch break, which she spent in the storage room so no one would see her not eating, Lisa often did homework. Not her homework. She'd dropped out of college when their parents died. Alex's homework. She'd sneak looks at his assignments and try to stay ahead of what he was learning so she could help him at night. Math was getting harder. Alex was taking algebra now, and Lisa struggled to remember what she'd learned years ago. She'd found free math videos online and watched them on her phone during breaks, trying to stay smart enough to help the smartest person she knew. After work, Lisa usually had just enough time to grab a quick shower before heading to her second job. She cleaned offices downtown from 6 p.m. to midnight. The building was always empty except for security guards, which meant she could work without anyone seeing how tired she was. The cleaning job paid better than the grocery store, but it was harder on her body. Vacuuming endless carpets, scrubbing bathrooms, emptying trash cans full of other people's leftover lunches that smelled better than anything in her own refrigerator. But while she worked, Lisa dreamed. She dreamed about Alex graduating high school at the top of his class. She pictured him walking across the stage to get his diploma, maybe even getting a scholarship to college. She imagined him becoming an engineer like he wanted, designing bridges or buildings that would last forever. These dreams kept her moving when her legs felt like concrete blocks. They kept her going when she wanted to collapse in the supply closet and cry until there were no tears left. At home, no matter how late she got back, Lisa always checked on Alex. He'd usually left his homework spread across their small kitchen table, completed and organized. Sometimes there were notes from teachers praising his work. Lisa would read these notes over and over, feeling proud enough to burst. The hardest part wasn't the work or the tiredness or even the hunger. The hardest part was pretending everything was fine. Alex was too smart and too observant. He knew they were barely getting by. But Lisa worked overtime to convince him that this was temporary, that things would get better soon. Late at night, when Alex was definitely asleep, Lisa would sit at their kitchen table with a calculator and a pile of bills. She'd figure out which ones absolutely had to be paid and which ones could wait another month. She'd count and recount their money, looking for creative ways to make $20 stretch until next Friday. Sometimes she'd catch her reflection in the black window and barely recognize herself. 2 years ago, she'd been a college sophomore with highlights in her hair and plans to become a teacher. Now she was 22 going on 40, with hands that were always dry from cleaning chemicals and dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. But then she'd look at Alex's homework again, see another A+ on a test, and remember why she was doing this. Alex was going to have the life their parents had wanted for both of them. He was going to make it out of this neighborhood, away from this struggle and into a future bright enough to justify everything Lisa was sacrificing. Some nights, that was enough. Some nights it had to be. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while Lisa was getting ready for work. She almost didn't answer because she didn't recognize the number, but something made her pick up on the fourth ring. Lisa Chen. The voice was professional, cold. Yes, this is Lisa. This is Janet from Bright Clean Services. I'm calling to inform you that due to company restructuring, your position has been eliminated effective immediately. Lisa felt the world tilt sideways. She gripped the edge of their kitchen counter so hard her knuckles went white. I'm sorry, what? My position? Your cleaning contract with our downtown clients has been terminated. We appreciate your service, but we won't be needing you anymore. But I've never missed a day. I've never been late. The clients always said I did good work. This isn't about performance. The building management decided to hire a larger company for all their cleaning needs. We'll mail your final paycheck. The line went dead. Lisa stared at her phone, waiting for this to be some kind of mistake. Waiting for Janet to call back and say there'd been an error. Alex wandered into the kitchen, already dressed for school. Who was that? Wrong number. The lie tasted like metal in her mouth. Lisa went through the motions of getting Alex ready for school, but her mind was spinning. The cleaning job had been bringing in $800 a month. The grocery store job only paid about $600. Their rent alone was $750. After Alex left for school, Lisa sat at their kitchen table and stared at the pile of bills she kept in an old shoebox. Electric bill, gas bill, phone bill, rent notice. She pulled out her calculator and started adding numbers, but the math was simple and brutal. They were about to be $400 short every month. She called Mr. Miller at the grocery store. Any chance I could pick up more hours? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I wish I could help you, honey, but business has been slow. I'm barely keeping the hours I've got. What about weekend shifts? Holidays? Lisa, you already work 6 days a week. When do you sleep? She wanted to tell him that sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, but instead she just said thank you and hung up. Over the next week, Lisa applied for every job she could find. She walked into restaurants, retail stores, and office buildings with copies of her resume printed at the library. Most places wanted experience she didn't have, or availability during hours when Alex needed her home. The rejections piled up like winter snow. We'll keep your resume on file. We're looking for someone with more experience. The position has been filled. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming. Lisa started a new ritual of checking their mailbox with the same dread most people reserve for horror movies. Every envelope felt like a threat. She tried calling their landlord, Mr. Foster, to explain the situation. Look, Lisa, I like you kids, but I've got bills too. Rent is due on the 1st, late fees start on the 5th. That's how it works. Could I maybe pay half now and half in 2 weeks? This isn't a payment plan service. It's an apartment building. Lisa hung up feeling smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. The worst part was hiding it from Alex. He was so focused on his schoolwork, so excited about his upcoming sophomore year. He'd been talking about joining the robotics club and maybe trying out for the math team. Lisa couldn't bear to tell him that they might not even have a place to live next month, but Alex was too smart to fool completely. He started asking more questions about her second job, wondering why she seemed to come home earlier now. Lisa made up stories about her hours being cut temporarily, that it would pick up again soon. 3 weeks after losing the cleaning job, Lisa found herself doing something she'd sworn she'd never do. She was standing in line at the community food bank, holding a canvas bag and trying to make herself invisible. The line moved slowly. Lisa studied the faces around her and realized that most people looked normal. A mom with 2 young kids, an elderly man in a veteran's hat, a woman about Lisa's age wearing scrubs like she worked at a hospital. When it was her turn, the volunteer was a kind older woman with gentle hands. "First time?" she asked softly. Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice. "It's okay, honey. We've all been there. What do you need most?" "I have a teenage brother. He eats a lot." Lisa's voice came out as a whisper. The woman packed their bag with rice, beans, peanut butter bread, and some canned vegetables. She also slipped in a bag of apples and some granola bars. "There's no shame in this," the woman said, looking directly into Lisa's eyes. "Taking care of family is the most important job in the world." Lisa carried the bag home like it contained explosives. She hid most of the food in her bedroom closet and only put out what looked like normal grocery shopping. But even the food bank couldn't solve their biggest problem. At the end of the month, Lisa counted their money 3 times, hoping the numbers would magically change. They were $200 short for rent. She sold her laptop first. It was old and slow, but it brought in $50. Then she sold her winter coat to a consignment shop for $25. Her mother's engagement ring, the only valuable thing she owned, went to a pawn shop for $80. Still not enough. Lisa started staying awake at night, staring at the ceiling and doing impossible math in her head. How could she stretch $43 until her next paycheck? How could she explain to Alex why they might have to move? The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Lisa was looking through their kitchen cabinets trying to figure out what to make for dinner with basically nothing. Alex was at the kitchen table doing homework and she could hear his stomach growling. She opened cabinet after cabinet, finding only empty shelves and a few condiment packets from fast food restaurants. In the refrigerator there was a piece of cheese with mold on it and some mustard. Lisa closed the refrigerator door and leaned against it, feeling tears start to burn behind her eyes. This was it. She'd finally hit the wall she'd been running toward for 2 years. "There's nothing to eat, is there?" Alex's voice was quiet behind her. Lisa turned around, ready to lie, ready to promise that she'd figure something out. But when she saw Alex's face, too thin, too worried, too grown up, the words wouldn't come. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Alex got up from the table and walked over to her. Without saying anything, he wrapped his arms around her and hugged her tight. They stood there in their empty kitchen, holding each other while Lisa tried not to fall apart completely. "We'll figure it out," Alex said into her shoulder. "We always do." But for the first time since their parents died, Lisa wasn't sure that was true. She wasn't sure they could figure this out. She wasn't sure there was a way out of the hole they'd fallen into. That night, after Alex went to bed, Lisa sat at their kitchen table with a pen and paper. She started writing down everything they owned that might be worth something. Her phone, Alex's guitar, the small television in their living room. The list was pathetically short. And even if she sold everything, it wouldn't be enough to catch up on rent and buy food and keep the lights on. For the first time in 2 years, Lisa let herself really cry. Not the quiet tears she sometimes shed in the shower, but the deep body-shaking sobs of someone who had finally run out of options. Tomorrow, she would have to start making the hardest decisions of her life. Decisions that might mean admitting she couldn't take care of Alex anymore. Decisions that might mean their little family wouldn't survive after all. Lisa was walking to work on a cold Wednesday morning when she heard the commotion. She'd left the apartment 20 minutes early because she couldn't afford bus fare and needed the extra time to walk. The November air bit at her face and she pulled her thin sweater tighter around her shoulders. She was passing by Cornerstone Coffee, one of those fancy places where a single cup cost more than she spent on food in a day, when she heard someone shout, "Help!" followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. Without thinking, Lisa ran toward the noise. In the alley beside the coffee shop, two men in dark hoodies were standing over someone on the ground. One of them was rifling through a briefcase while the other kept watch. The person on the ground was a well-dressed man, probably in his 40s, trying to protect his head with his arms. "Hey!" Lisa shouted as loud as she could. "Get away from him!" The two attackers looked up, startled. Lisa was small and clearly not a threat, but her sudden appearance had broken their focus. "I'm calling the police right now." Lisa pulled out her phone and held it up. Even though she'd actually used up her data for the month and couldn't make calls unless she was on Wi-Fi. The men looked at each other, then back at Lisa. For a moment, nobody moved. "There are cameras everywhere around here," Lisa continued, gaining confidence. "And I got a good look at both of your faces." This was only partly true. The coffee shop did have security cameras, though Lisa had no idea if they covered the alley. And she'd only seen the men clearly for a few seconds, but it worked. The men dropped the briefcase and ran, disappearing around the corner and leaving Lisa alone with the victim. She hurried over to the man on the ground. He was well-dressed in an expensive-looking suit, though it was now dirty and torn. His briefcase lay open beside him, papers scattered everywhere. "Are you okay?" Lisa knelt down beside him. "Do you need an ambulance?" The man sat up slowly, wincing. He had a cut on his forehead and his lip was bleeding, but he seemed more shaken than seriously hurt. "I think I'm all right," he said, touching his forehead gingerly. "Thank you. That was incredibly brave. Are you sure you don't need medical attention?" Lisa helped him gather the scattered papers. "You're bleeding. It's just a scratch." He stood up carefully, brushing dirt off his suit. "You probably saved my life." Those guys were getting pretty aggressive. Lisa handed him the papers she'd collected. Up close, she could see they were covered with numbers and charts that meant nothing to her. The man's watch alone probably cost more than she made in a year. "I'm David. By the way." He extended his hand. "Lisa." She shook his hand, noticing how soft it was compared to her own work-roughened fingers. "Lisa, I can't thank you enough. Can I buy you breakfast coffee? It's the least I can do." Lisa glanced at her phone. She still had 15 minutes before her shift started, but she'd been planning to use that time to stop by the dollar store and see if they had any clearance food items. "That's really nice of you, but I have to get to work." "Where do you work? Maybe I could give you a ride so you're not late." "It's just a few blocks. I work at Miller's Grocery." Lisa felt embarrassed saying it, though she wasn't sure why. There was nothing wrong with working at a grocery store. "Well, at least let me buy you a coffee to go, please. I feel terrible that you might be late because you stopped to help me." Lisa looked at the coffee shop, with its warm lights and the smell of fresh pastries drifting out every time someone opened the door. When was the last time she'd had real coffee? Not the instant stuff she made at home, but actual brewed coffee? "Okay," she said, "but just something small." David smiled, and Lisa noticed he had kind eyes despite the cut on his forehead. "Trust me, after what you just did, small isn't going to cut it." Inside the coffee shop, Lisa felt out of place immediately. Everyone was dressed in business clothes or expensive casual wear, typing on laptops and having conversations about things like stock options and weekend trips to Napa. "What would you like?" David asked, scanning the menu board. Lisa looked at the prices and felt dizzy. $12 for a breakfast sandwich? $8 for a fancy coffee drink? "Just a regular coffee would be great," she said. "Are you sure? They have amazing pastries here. And you must be hungry." Lisa was hungry. She'd had toast for breakfast and was planning to skip lunch again. But she couldn't bring herself to let this stranger spend money on expensive food for her, even though he clearly had plenty. "Coffee is perfect." David ordered 2 coffees and, despite Lisa's protests, a bag of pastries, for later. When the barista handed Lisa her coffee, it was the best thing she'd tasted in months. Rich and smooth with real cream that swirled through the dark liquid like clouds. They sat at a small table by the window. David dabbed at his cut with a napkin, while Lisa tried not to gulp her coffee too quickly. "So you work at Miller's Grocery," David said. "Do you like it there?" "It's a good job," Lisa said automatically. It was her standard response when people asked about work. "Mr. Miller is really understanding and I like helping customers." "Have you worked there long?" About 2 years. Lisa didn't mention that it was one of two jobs, or that she'd started working there right after her parents died. And what do you do when you're not working? Hobbies? School? Lisa almost laughed. Hobbies were for people who had free time and extra money. I keep pretty busy with work. I have a younger brother to take care of. Something in David's expression shifted. How much younger? He's 14. A freshman in high school. Lisa couldn't keep the pride out of her voice. He's really smart. Straight A's, and he's thinking about joining the robotics club. That's impressive. It must be a lot of responsibility taking care of a teenager. Lisa nodded, not trusting herself to say more. She'd learned that talking too much about her situation made people uncomfortable. They'd start asking questions about parents and social services, and Lisa had become expert at changing the subject. He sounds like a great kid, David said gently. He is. He's going to do amazing things someday. Lisa meant every word. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people hurry past the window with their briefcases and coffee cups. I should probably get going, Lisa said, checking her phone. I don't want to be late. Of course. David stood up and pulled out his wallet. At least let me give you something for helping me. A reward? No, absolutely not. Lisa stood up quickly. I didn't help you for money. Anyone would have done the same thing. I don't think that's true, David said quietly. Most people would have kept walking. Well, I couldn't do that. David studied her face for a moment like he was trying to memorize it. You're a good person, Lisa from Miller's Grocery. Lisa felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm just a regular person. No, David said. You're really not. Outside the coffee shop, David insisted on walking Lisa to work, even though she told him it wasn't necessary. When they reached Miller's Grocery, he shook her hand again. Thank you, he said, for everything. Thank you for the coffee. It was really good. Lisa watched David walk away, briefcase in hand, already on his phone, making some important call. In 5 minutes, he'd probably forget all about her. But she wouldn't forget him. Not because he was wealthy or well-dressed, but because he'd been genuinely kind to her. He'd treated her like a person worth talking to, not just someone who worked at a grocery store. As she tied on her apron and prepared for another long day of standing and smiling, Lisa found herself thinking about their conversation. When was the last time someone had asked her about hobbies? When was the last time someone had seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say? The morning rush at the store was busy, and Lisa fell into her usual rhythm of scanning items and making small talk with customers. But something felt different. The coffee had energized her, but it was more than that. For the first time in months, she'd had a normal conversation with someone, not about bills or problems or what needed to be fixed. Just a regular conversation between two people. During her break, Lisa found herself thinking about Alex. What would it be like if she could afford to buy him coffee from a place like Cornerstone? What would it be like to sit with him and talk about his dreams without worrying about how much those dreams might cost? She pulled out the bag of pastries David had insisted on buying. Inside were 2 beautiful croissants and a chocolate muffin. Lisa ate one croissant slowly, savoring every buttery bite. The other croissant and the muffin went into her bag. Alex was going to love them. For the rest of her shift, Lisa replayed the morning in her mind. She thought about David's kind eyes and the way he'd listened when she talked about Alex. She thought about the warm coffee shop and the feeling of being treated like someone who mattered. It had been such a small thing, really. A cup of coffee and 15 minutes of conversation. But sometimes small things could make you remember that there was still kindness in the world. Sometimes they could remind you that not everyone saw you as invisible. Lisa had no way of knowing that her small act of courage that morning would change everything. She had no idea that David was already thinking about how to find her again, or that their brief conversation had affected him as much as it had affected her. All she knew was that for the first time in a long time, she felt like herself again. Not just Alex's sister or the girl who worked 2 jobs or the young woman who counted every penny. Just Lisa, who had done the right thing when it mattered and had been treated with kindness in return. It was a feeling she wanted to hold on to forever. David couldn't stop thinking about Lisa. 3 days had passed since the incident outside the coffee shop, and he found himself distracted during important meetings, staring out his office window instead of focusing on quarterly reports. He kept replaying their conversation, remembering the way her face had lit up when she talked about her brother, The careful way she'd counted change from her pocket, how she'd refused his offer of a reward. David Richards was the CEO of TechFlow Industries, a company he'd built from the ground up over 15 years. He was worth more money than he could spend in several lifetimes, owned homes in 4 countries, and had been featured on the cover of Forbes twice. He was used to people wanting things from him. Money, jobs, connections, favors. Lisa had wanted nothing. That evening, David found himself driving past Miller's Grocery. Through the window, he could see Lisa at the checkout counter, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, smiling at customers even though she looked exhausted. He sat in his car for 10 minutes just watching her work. There was something about her kindness that had shaken him. In his world, kindness usually came with a price tag. People were nice to him because of who he was, what he could do for them. But Lisa had helped him when she thought he was just some guy getting mugged. She'd risked her own safety for a complete stranger. David made a decision that would have surprised anyone who knew him. Instead of moving on and forgetting about the encounter, he decided to learn more about Lisa Chen. He called Marcus Rivera, a private investigator he'd used for business matters before. Marcus was discreet, thorough, and understood the importance of being careful with sensitive information. "I need you to look into someone," David said during their meeting the next day. "But I want to be clear about something. This isn't about digging up dirt or finding weaknesses. I want to understand her situation so I can help appropriately." Marcus raised an eyebrow. In 20 years of investigation work, he'd heard every reason people gave for wanting information about others. This was a new one. "What kind of help are we talking about?" "I don't know yet. That's why I need the information." David gave Marcus what little he knew. Lisa Chen worked at Miller's Grocery, had a 14-year-old brother, probably lived somewhere nearby. "How deep do you want me to go?" "Deep enough to understand her circumstances. Not deep enough to invade her privacy." "There's a difference," Marcus nodded. He'd worked with David long enough to trust his judgment, even when his requests were unusual. The report came back a week later, and it broke David's heart. Lisa Chen, age 22, had been taking care of her brother Alex since their parents died in a car accident 2 years earlier. The accident had been caused by a drunk driver who'd fled the scene and was never caught. Lisa had dropped out of college in her sophomore year to become Alex's guardian. She worked at Miller's Grocery 30 hours a week and had been working a second job cleaning offices until recently. When that job was eliminated, she was currently behind on rent and had visited a local food bank twice in the past month. Medical bills from her parents' accident were still being paid off in small monthly installments. The family had owned their home, but it had been sold to pay for funeral expenses and outstanding debts. Despite their financial struggles, Alex Chen was an honor student with a 4.0 GPA. His teachers described him as exceptionally bright and college material. He was interested in engineering and mathematics. Lisa had no criminal record, no debt beyond the medical bills and normal living expenses, and was described by neighbors and coworkers as helpful, kind, and always willing to lend a hand. The most telling detail in the report was from Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly neighbor. "That girl works herself to the bone for that boy. I've seen her give him the last of her food and pretend she already ate. She tutors the neighborhood kids for free when she gets home from work. And she organized a food drive for the senior citizens in our building last Christmas. If there's a better person in this world, I haven't met them." David read the report 3 times, each reading making him more certain of what he needed to do. This wasn't a family looking for handouts or trying to take advantage of anyone's generosity. This was a young woman who had been dealt an impossible hand and was playing it with more grace and dignity than most people could manage. But David also understood that people like Lisa had pride. She'd already refused his offer of a reward. She wouldn't accept charity no matter how desperately she needed it. Whatever help he offered would have to be done carefully, in a way that preserved her dignity. David spent the next week developing a plan. First, he researched scholarship programs and found that several universities offered full-ride scholarships for academically gifted students from low-income families. Alex's grades and circumstances would make him an ideal candidate, but these programs were highly competitive and required early application. Second, David looked into his own company's hiring practices. TechFlow had several entry-level management training programs designed for bright individuals who showed potential but lacked experience. The positions offered good salaries, excellent benefits, and real opportunities for advancement. Third, David called an old friend who ran a legitimate charitable foundation focused on helping families in crisis. The foundation had a good reputation and provided assistance in ways that felt more like opportunities than handouts. The plan that began to form was complex but felt right. It would help Lisa and Alex without making them feel like charity cases. It would provide them with opportunities they'd earned through their character and hard work, not just because they needed help. David started making phone calls. "Jennifer, it's David Richards. I have a situation I think your foundation might be interested in." Jennifer Morrison had run the Hope Springs Foundation for 8 years. She'd known David for longer than that. And while she was sometimes wary of wealthy donors who wanted to play with other people's lives, she trusted his judgment. "What kind of situation?" David explained about Lisa and Alex, being careful not to reveal how he'd learned about their circumstances. "I think they'd be perfect candidates for your family assistance program. You said the boy is academically gifted?" "Straight A's, interested in engineering. His teachers think he's exceptional. And the sister? She's been supporting them both for 2 years. Dropped out of college to become his guardian. Everyone who knows her says she's remarkable." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "David, how do you know these people?" David had anticipated this question. "She helped me out of a difficult situation. When I tried to thank her, she wouldn't accept anything. But I can't stop thinking about how much potential they both have." "And you want us to what exactly?" "Evaluate them for your programs. The scholarship fund for the boy, maybe some job placement assistance for the sister, but it has to feel legitimate. They can't know I'm involved. That's going to be tricky. That's why I called you instead of trying to handle it myself." Jennifer agreed to look into the situation. The Hope Springs Foundation had a good system for identifying and helping families in need. If Lisa and Alex qualified for their programs based on merit and circumstances, then everything would be above board. Meanwhile, David reached out to his human resources director. "Patricia, I want to expand our management training program. We just hired 6 new trainees last month. I want to add a community outreach component. Partner with local organizations to identify candidates who might not have traditional qualifications but show exceptional character and potential." Patricia looked intrigued. David was known for innovative hiring practices, but this was a new direction. "What kind of candidates are you thinking about?" "People who've overcome significant challenges. People who've shown leadership in their communities or families. People who might not have the usual college credentials but have real-world experience and strong work ethics." "That could be interesting. How would we identify these candidates?" "Start with community organizations, local nonprofits, places where people actually know their neighbors. Look for recommendations from people who have nothing to gain by lying." As David set his plan in motion, he found himself driving past Miller's grocery more often than he cared to admit. He never went inside, but he liked knowing that Lisa was there, that she was okay, that soon her life might get a little easier. He thought about what Mrs. Rodriguez had said in the investigator's report. Lisa organized food drives and tutored neighborhood kids for free, even when she was struggling to feed herself. She was the kind of person who made the world better just by being in it. David had enough money to solve her problems with a single phone call. He could pay off her medical bills, cover her rent for a year, set up college funds for both Lisa and Alex. But he understood that doing so would rob her of something important, the knowledge that she'd earned her way out of this situation. Instead, he was going to give her and Alex what they'd already earned, opportunities that matched their character and abilities. Scholarships Alex deserved based on his grades, job opportunities Lisa had earned through her work ethic and integrity. It would take longer, and it would be more complicated, but it would let them keep their dignity. And dignity, David had learned, was often more valuable than money. The wheels were now in motion. Soon Lisa Chen would discover that sometimes the universe really did reward good people. She just wouldn't know that sometimes the universe needed a little help from someone who understood the value of kindness. The phone call came on a Thursday afternoon while Lisa was restocking shelves at Miller's grocery. Her phone rang and she almost didn't answer because she was working, but the caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize with a local area code. "Hello, is this Lisa Chen?" The voice was professional but warm. Yes, this is Lisa. My name is Jennifer Morrison from the Hope Springs Foundation. I'm calling about your brother Alex. Is this a good time to talk? Lisa's heart jumped into her throat. Anytime someone called about Alex, her first thought was that something terrible had happened. Is Alex okay? Is he in trouble? Oh no, nothing like that. I'm calling with good news. Alex has been selected for our Academic Excellence Scholarship Program. Lisa leaned against the shelf, confused. I'm sorry, what? I've never heard of your foundation, and we didn't apply for any scholarships. Alex was nominated by his school counselor. Our foundation identifies exceptional students from underserved communities and provides full educational support. Alex's academic record and personal circumstances make him an ideal candidate. Full educational support? Complete college tuition, room and board, plus a living stipend for his guardian. We also provide mentoring and career guidance. It's a comprehensive program designed to help exceptional students reach their full potential. Lisa felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like them. I think there might be some mistake. There's no mistake. Alex Chen, 14 years old, 4.0 GPA, interested in engineering. Lives with his older sister Lisa, who works at Miller's Grocery. Is that correct? Yes, but Lisa's voice trailed off. How did this woman know so much about them? I understand this is unexpected. Could you and Alex come to our office tomorrow for a presentation? I'd love to explain the program in detail and answer all your questions. Lisa agreed to the meeting, partly because she didn't know what else to say and partly because she needed to understand what was happening. That evening, she sat Alex down at their kitchen table and tried to explain the phone call. A scholarship? Alex looked as confused as Lisa felt. Oh, but I'm only a freshman, and I didn't apply for anything. That's what I said. But this woman knew everything about us. Your grades, where I work, everything. Do you think it's some kind of scam? Lisa had wondered the same thing. Maybe, but she wants to meet at their office, and I looked them up online. The Hope Springs Foundation is real. They've been around for years. The next day, Lisa and Alex took the bus downtown to the foundation's office. Lisa had dressed in her best clothes, a black skirt and white blouse she'd bought for job interviews. And Alex wore his only good shirt. The office was in a nice building with marble, floors and fresh flowers in the lobby. A receptionist directed them to a conference room where Jennifer Morrison was waiting. Jennifer was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a genuine smile. She shook hands with both of them and gestured for them to sit at a polished wooden table. Thank you for coming. I know this must seem strange, but I want to assure you that our foundation is completely legitimate. We've been helping families like yours for 8 years. She opened a folder and pulled out several documents. Alex, your academic record is truly exceptional. A 4.0 GPA, glowing recommendations from your teachers, and according to your school counselor, you have real potential to excel in engineering. Alex glanced at Lisa, unsure what to say. The scholarship I mentioned covers everything, Jennifer continued. Full tuition to any accredited university, room and board, books, and a monthly stipend of $1,500 for living expenses. Lisa's mouth fell open. $1,500 a month was more than she made at the grocery store. How is this possible? Lisa asked. Who pays for all this? We're funded by private donors who believe in investing in exceptional young people. Our donors prefer to remain anonymous, but they've been very successful in business and want to give back by creating opportunities for deserving students. Jennifer turned to Alex. The scholarship comes with some expectations. You'd need to maintain at least a 3.5 GPA in college, participate in our mentoring program, and eventually give back by helping other students in similar situations. Alex nodded, though he still looked overwhelmed. I have one more piece of information, Jennifer said, pulling out another document. Lisa, our foundation also partners with local businesses to provide job opportunities for family members of our scholarship recipients. We believe in supporting the whole family, not just the student. What kind of job opportunities? There's a company called TechFlow Industries that's looking for candidates for their management training program. It's a year-long program that teaches business skills, provides excellent benefits, and leads to a full-time management position. The starting salary is $60,000. Lisa felt like she was dreaming. $60,000? With full health insurance, paid vacation, and opportunities for advancement. They're specifically looking for people who've shown leadership and resilience in challenging circumstances. Jennifer slid a business card across the table. The hiring manager's name is Patricia Williams. If you're interested, you can call her this afternoon. Lisa stared at the business card, afraid to touch it in case it disappeared. I don't understand, she said quietly. Why us? How did you even know about us? Jennifer smiled. Sometimes good things happen to good people, Lisa. Your story isn't as invisible as you might think. The way you've sacrificed for Alex, the way you've handled impossible circumstances with grace, people notice these things. But we didn't ask for help. The best people rarely do. There was something familiar about Jennifer's tone, something that reminded Lisa of another conversation she'd had recently. But she couldn't place it. What happens next? Alex asked. If you accept the scholarship, Alex would finish high school normally, then start college in the fall. Lisa, if you're interested in the job opportunity, you could start the training program next month. Lisa looked at Alex, who was staring at the scholarship documents like they might vanish at any moment. Can we think about it? Lisa asked. Of course. But don't think too long. Good opportunities don't wait forever. As they prepared to leave, Jennifer walked them to the elevator. Lisa, can I ask you something? A few weeks ago, did you help someone who was in trouble? Someone who might have wanted to show his gratitude? Lisa's heart skipped. Why do you ask? Just curious. In the elevator, Lisa's mind was racing. The coffee shop, David, the well-dressed man who'd insisted on buying her coffee and pastries. Alex, she said quietly, I think I know what happened. What do you mean? Remember those pastries I brought home a few weeks ago? I told you I got them on sale, but that wasn't true. Someone bought them for me. Who? A man I helped when he was getting mugged. He wanted to thank me, but I wouldn't let him give me money. Alex looked at her with wide eyes. You think he set this up? I think maybe he found another way to say thank you. That evening, Lisa called Patricia Williams at TechFlow Industries. The interview was scheduled for the following Monday. On Sunday night, Lisa stood in front of their bathroom mirror, trying to imagine herself as a management trainee at a tech company. It seemed impossible. 6 months ago, she'd been cleaning office buildings at midnight. Now she might be working in one during the day, learning skills that could change her entire life. The interview went better than Lisa had dared to hope. Patricia Williams was professional but warm, and she seemed genuinely interested in Lisa's experience managing a household, budgeting, and handling multiple responsibilities. This program is designed for people who've shown they can handle challenges, Patricia explained. Academic credentials are nice, but we're more interested in character and determination. I definitely have experience with challenges, Lisa said. And for the first time in months, she felt proud instead of embarrassed about her situation. 3 days later, Patricia called with an offer. Lisa would start the management training program the following Monday. That night, Lisa and Alex sat at their kitchen table with Chinese takeout, the first restaurant food they'd had in over a year. I still can't believe this is real, Alex said, reading through his scholarship materials for the 10th time. Me either. Lisa looked around their small apartment. Soon they'd be able to afford a better place. Alex would go to college without worrying about money. Lisa would have a career instead of just a job. Do you think we'll ever see him again? Alex asked. The man who helped us? I don't know, but I hope he knows how grateful we are. Lisa never did see David again, not directly, but sometimes she thought she spotted a familiar figure in the parking lot outside her new office building, or glimpsed someone who looked like him in the coffee shop where she now sometimes bought lunch. 2 years later, when Alex graduated high school as valedictorian and headed off to MIT on his full scholarship, Lisa was the regional manager of TechFlow's customer service division. She'd bought a small house in a good neighborhood and had started a college fund for herself. She also started volunteering with the Hope Springs Foundation, helping to identify other families who deserved a chance. She never asked Jennifer about David, and Jennifer never brought him up. But sometimes Lisa caught her smiling in a way that suggested she knew exactly what Lisa was thinking. On quiet evenings, Lisa would remember that cold November morning when she'd heard someone calling for help. She'd acted without thinking, doing what felt right in the moment. She'd had no idea that one small act of kindness could change everything. But that was the thing about kindness Lisa had learned. You never knew where it might lead. You helped because it was right. not because you expected anything in return. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, the universe found a way to help you back. Alex was thriving at MIT, already talking about graduate school and his plans to design bridges that could withstand earthquakes. Lisa was taking night classes, working toward finishing her own degree in business management. Sometimes she wondered what would have happened if she'd walked a different route to work that day, if she'd minded her own business and kept walking when she heard someone calling for help. But she didn't wonder for long. Lisa had learned that the best things in life came from the moments when you chose to care about someone else's trouble as much as your own. Those moments, it turned out, were when miracles became possible.